Welcome to the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness Applicant Briefing. This applicant briefing is for emergency declarations under 44 CFR 206.35. The President may declare an emergency declaration when an incident occurs in a state which would not qualify under the definition of a major disaster, but is still of such severity and magnitude that effective response is beyond the capability of the state and affected local government, and requires the supplementary federal emergency assistance to save lives and to protect property, public health, and safety, or to lessen or avert the threat of a disaster. To be eligible for assistance, the damage must have occurred within the parishes you see on the screen. You, as the applicant, are responsible for showing that the emergency work was required due to an immediate threat resulting from the declared incident, or to address damage caused by the declared incident. An emergency declaration may include only emergency work to address an immediate threat. This includes Category A, debris removal, and Category B, emergency protective measures. However, it doesn't necessarily include both, and you should be mindful of what each emergency declaration includes. The Public Assistance, or PA program, is a federal supplemental financial assistance program to local governments, state agencies, and certain private nonprofits, which will reimburse applicants for eligible response and recovery activities required as a result of a disaster declared by the President. A federal cost share program is typically 75% federal and 25% non-federal. As you see on the screen, this is the example of how cost share works. If you have $100,000 in damage, FEMA will fund $75,000 of that, and the applicant is responsible for $25,000. Insurance proceeds are also deducted from the damage amount before cost share. So if you have $100,000 in damage and $60,000 in insurance proceeds, FEMA will only pay $30,000, and you will be responsible for the remaining 25% balance of $10,000.
To submit your request for public assistance, or RPA, there are 5 basic steps you should follow. Step 1. Log on to www.louisianapa.com. Note the red banner. You will need to click on the banner and follow the on-screen instruction. This is where you go to submit your request for public assistance, or RPA. This is to eliminate paper and email copies showing up last minute or after the deadline. This is free. Any requests to pay are spam and fraud. Please report them to Gohsep. If you need assistance in getting LAPA access, email la.pa@la.gov. If you have questions about your request for public assistance, email rpa.help@la.gov.
Step 2. Submit your RPA. Submit your RPA to the state within 30 days of the parish being listed in the emergency declaration. In louisianapa.com, you will create new requests and select new requests for assistance. But wait, do you have an active DUNS number? If yes, proceed to inputting your RPA by clicking the Create New Request button and selecting New Request for Assistance. If you do not have a number, you can obtain one by calling toll-free 1-866-705-5711 or by going to this website.
Step 3. Schedule a kickoff meeting. FEMA will contact you to schedule a kickoff meeting if your organization has an approved RPA. To assist in your efforts, compile a list of claims specified by location to include damage descriptions, scope of work, nature of work, and estimated cost. You will have 60 days following your first official meeting with FEMA to make claims and identify damages. Failure to properly document remains the top reasons for deobligation. We recommend you start organizing your documentation as soon as possible. For your kickoff meeting, we recommend you try to have the following documents organized and available: estimates of applicant costs, invoices, full insurance policies, emergency contracts, and your written overtime policy. Step 4. Know the basics. If you're an old pro, you've probably already got this, but let's brush up just to make sure. The possible work categories include Category A, debris removal; Category B, emergency protective measures; Category C, roads and bridge systems; Category D, water control facilities; Category E, buildings and equipment; Category F, utilities; and Category G, parks, recreation, and other. An emergency declaration may only include one or both in red, so let's talk more about that. Category A is for debris removal. For debris removal, you must demonstrate that the debris causing an immediate threat was generated during the declared incident period and directly by the declared incident. If you are considering debris removal, environmental and historic preservation related issues should also be reviewed. Category B is for emergency protective measures. Emergency protective measures are conducted before, during, and after an incident and are eligible if the measures eliminate or lessen immediate threats to life, public health or safety, or eliminate or lessen immediate threats of significant additional damage to improved public or private property in a cost-effective manner. Work associated with this category should be completed within 6 months of declaration date or a time extension is required. Examples of Category B emergency protective measures include search and rescue, bracing and shoring levees, fire, police, and medical services, generators, sandbagging, activation of emergency operation centers, pumping water, dehumidifying, and other activities. Under Category B, force account labor costs may be eligible for the following employees for emergency overtime work: permanent employees, reassigned employees, and seasonal employees. Also, regular time and overtime are eligible for temporary employees performing emergency work. FEMA refers to the applicant's personnel as force account labor. FEMA reimburses force account labor, including the employee's actual fringe benefits, based on your pre-disaster written labor policies. Here, you will see a graphic that helps explain eligible costs for employees' overtime and straight time, depending on the type of employee and the type of work they are doing. For reassigned employees, the applicant may assign an employee to perform work that is not part of the employee's normal job. For backfill employees, overtime costs are eligible as long as the employee that he or she is replacing is performing eligible emergency work. Supervisors are usually exempt and don't get overtime, unless it's a specific project or overtime that's in accordance with the labor policy. Other costs include extraordinary costs such as callback, nighttime, and hazardous duty pay. And standby time may be eligible for reimbursement, but it must be reasonable, necessary, and consistently applied. Equipment costs used to perform eligible disaster-related activities may be reimbursable, whether applicant-owned or rented equipment is used. You can use either FEMA's equipment rates or locally developed equipment rates, whichever are lower. The lower of either FEMA's equipment rates or the locally established equipment rates should be used to determine applicant-owned equipment rates that can be documented. FEMA's equipment rates are available at FEMA.gov. In order for your equipment to be reimbursed, you need to track the assigned operator, detailed specifications of the equipment, and hours utilized. Remember that if you rent equipment, you need to follow proper procurement regulations. Please check out the Gohsep website under Resources, then Publications to see Gohsep's published procurement toolbox. You can also reach Gohsep Legal for Stafford Act technical assistance by emailing gohseplegal@la.gov. Applicants are able to use volunteer and donated resources to offset their non-federal cost share for emergency work if the eligible work is essential to meeting immediate threats to life and property resulting from a major disaster. These donated resources may include volunteer labor, donated equipment, and donated materials. Eligibility for cost offset will only be considered if certain conditions and documentation requirements are met. Only Category A and B work under the Public Assistance Program is eligible. This work provided by a volunteer agency can include debris removal, search and rescue, sheltering, and filling and placing sandbags. All work must be tracked, and the documentation must include specific locations, descriptions of work performed, the hours each volunteer donated to your entity, and be validated by a government official or appointee. The volunteer hours will only apply to work that is the legal responsibility of the applicant. Additionally, the applicant should value the donations of goods, time, and labor at what it would cost the local or state government to provide or procure a similar service. When an applicant doesn't have sufficient resources to respond to an incident, it may request resources from another jurisdiction through a mutual aid agreement, either through IMAC or EMAC. If you participated in either of these, this should be addressed in your kickoff meeting. The project worksheet, or PW, is used to document the scope of work and cost estimate for a project. The PW includes locations, damage description and dimensions, scope of work, special considerations, and cost estimates. For this event, the minimum amount for funding a PW is $3,100, and the large project threshold is $123,100.
Step 5 is participation in the reimbursement process. The applicant is responsible for establishing and maintaining accurate records of events and expenditures related to recovery work for which you request FEMA assistance. Don't forget, for large projects, you must submit proper documentation to Gohsep through the LAPA Reimbursement Request Form RRF process prior to receiving reimbursements for these costs. All documents are subject to audit by the state, FEMA, and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Office of Inspector General. Failure to properly document any claim expenses may result in loss of funding. The appeals process is the opportunity for applicants to challenge a FEMA decision. You must file an appeal within 60 days of an official notice of a FEMA determination received from the state. If you are not sure, you may contact any Gohsep legal representative via email at gohseplegal@la.gov.
So let's review the steps. Step 1, get LAPA access. Step 2, submit that RPA. Step 3, schedule that kickoff meeting. Step 4, know the basics. And Step 5, participate in the reimbursement process. You can find more resources on the Louisiana PA website under Resources. You don't even have to log in to check them out. You can also find more resources on the gohsep.gov website under Resources, then Publications. Gohsep provides staff assigned to you to assist you through the PA process. If you don't know who your Gohsep contacts are, they can be found within LAPA.
Now let's talk about P&Ps. Only certain P&Ps are eligible applicants. First, you must show your nonprofit is eligible for public assistance based off of your tax exemption status as determined by the IRS or the state. P&Ps must also own or operate an eligible facility that either provides a critical service or a non-critical service. A non-critical service may be eligible if it provides an essential government service and it is open to the general public. Critical services include education, medical, utility, and emergency services. Please email rpa.help@la.gov if you are unsure. The list of non-critical but essential government services are very long and include all of these public supportive activities. Non-critical P&P must apply to the Small Business Administration for disaster assistance for permanent work before FEMA will provide assistance. This does not apply to emergency work. Be sure to upload any required documentation mentioned in the P&P questionnaire for private nonprofit applicants, as this information is vital to FEMA for being able to determine your eligibility for participation in the PA program. Required documentation for P&Ps includes charter, bylaws, articles of incorporation, which are legal documents that say who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Proof of tax-exempt status, which is your IRS determination letter, or proof from the state that you are an active, in good standing at the time of the disaster, nonprofit operation under state law. For schools, any evidence of state approval being registered. For daycare, food services, etc., an appropriate licensure from the state would suffice. For multi-use facilities, a breakdown by time and/or space of the eligible usage of the damaged facilities. Remember, it must be greater than 50% to be eligible.
Closeout comes up fast, so please note that your request for grant closeout must be submitted within 120 days of completion of work. Also, make sure all of your procurement is done in accordance with FEMA and your local procurement rules. Remember, for local and P&Ps, the most restrictive rule always wins. State agencies need to follow their state procurement laws, but also remember to add the required FEMA contract clauses. Do you need more assistance? There is more information online. FEMA's Procurement Disaster Assistance Team produces many helpful documents and trainings on their website. FEMA also produces the Public Assistance Policy Guide. The Louisiana Legislative Auditor's Office writes many helpful guidance documents to help you through disaster procurement. And finally, check out the Gohsep website for even more resources. Don't forget, you must certify that you have watched the entirety of this video to get credit for your agency's attendance in the applicant briefing for this disaster. This certification must be completed, signed, and emailed to rpa.help@la.gov. If you have any questions regarding what you heard in this briefing, please contact Gohsep Legal@la.gov or call your state applicant liaison today.